You've depleted all dopamine. You're exhausted. You spent a long day executing trade after trade and you just cannot stop losing. We've all been there. It's never a great time, but I will tell you the one thing you learn the most from your mistakes is that you can't keep doing them. And I think for a lot of people, they try to lose at such a small scale that they never really feel the true consequence of their poor decisions. That's an issue. Because the faster that you hit that rock bottom, the quicker you are to actually say, you know what? There is no justification. This isn't what's working for me. So how could I continue to do that? Is the question. When you lose at a small scale, you can rationalize almost anything. Oh, I'm just trying this out. Oh, I'm just putting on a feeler. Oh, I didn't mean that trade. I was just doing it for whatever reason. But in your heart, you know that's bullshit. And the reason that you lack confidence in following any sort of strategy or system or game plan for a period of time is because you've killed that confidence. You've lied to yourself enough to the point where you say, you know what? I'm not even going to listen to me. Because why would I? I haven't done it in the past and I have no evidence that that's something that I'm used to doing. Your brain keeps a score of the habits that you follow. That's what builds your self-worth. So when you're trading, it's not about the rules that you break that really determine your success. It's the habits that you form by not following the rules. That's what creates your identity. And I think a lot of traders, they spend a lot of time focused on the wrong things. And I can say this is true because in my experience, that's what I did. And when I can think back and look at any period of time where I might be going through a rough patch, I fall into those same habits of operation. It's not about what I think I'm capable of. It's simply about what is the byproduct of my habits. If my habits are not aligned with any sort of outcome that I want, there's no guarantee that I'm ever going to see this consistent or sustainable success. And you're no different. The thing with trading is it's not a game of who's the best. It's a game of who follows their system the best. You don't need the best strategy. You need the best executed strategy. It's a very different thing than what people think. You get into trading thinking that you need to solve the market, but really you could solve the market by consistently using the most basic strategy well. Because at the end of the day, what is solving the market? Having the most technical trade or walking away with consistent money? Remember the game that you're playing. You didn't get into trading to become the best analyst. And even so, when you start focusing on those different aspects, at the end of the day, the goal doesn't change. If you want to be a great analyst, that means you have to have great habits. Because to look at something and to not apply in the correct way, it means you don't really know what you're doing. And you're just trying to sugarcoat the fact that you're just trading on emotions. Analysts do not have a place in trading. That's one aspect of looking at the market. You don't have to analyze things very well. You have to make quality decisions based on the analysis you make. You could have a very bad trade, right? But because of your management on it, you walk away with the least possible damage done to your account and to your confidence. But when you execute a trade and you're so convinced that your analysis is right, you will delude yourself into making poor decisions with your management of the trade. Let me say that again. When you are convinced that you're a great analyst, your management will fall. But when you do not care about how well you can analyze a chart and you only care about managing every single trade to the best of your abilities, you'll actually walk away with more consistent returns because it's not about the opportunity that you spot. You could have a very, very, very low threshold for seeing opportunity. It's about how you manage that capital that you actually have and your ability to compound it. Because here's the thing about trading. One good trade undoes a lot. It will undo a lot of damage that you do to your account. However, it won't undo everything. So if you sit there and you take loss after loss after loss after loss, that's going to be one hell of a miracle that you need to make back even a fraction of what you're down. It's a much better strategy to know the shots that you want to take and execute those with integrity. Because once your integrity starts to slide, they call it a slippery slope for a reason. Because if you do not have a defined set of guidelines that you're following, where does the line end? If you have no boundaries, the market is a limitless ocean. Where do you define those opportunities for you? That doesn't mean take one trade a year. That doesn't mean take one trade a month. It means take trades that fall within a certain threshold of execution. For example, that could be you have a filter to stay out of the market when the 5 or 15 or hourly chart is completely sideways. But it doesn't mean that you need ultimately the biggest move to make money. That is a fallacy for the people who are afraid to put in the work. You shouldn't be afraid of the losses. They will teach you more than anything else. You should be willing to bottom out fast, hit rock bottom hard, because then you can actually use that as a springboard to bounce out of that hole. The worst thing you could do, and it's interesting because I've seen this happen in many different areas of life. I believe one of the worst things that you can do to your career or your desire to be the best is to have a slow burn of your potential. There's people who have bad habits. Maybe they, drink, or maybe they just do stuff that isn't aligned with their ultimate goal. But they never make such a bad decision that they're actually confronted with the fact that, wow, if I don't change something, like my life is going to be a disaster. Instead, they stay in that middle, that mediocre middle where they never learn the opposite. They never learn the extreme. People, they aspire to reach a certain goal, but they never put on enough risk in the opposite sense where they bottom out really hard. How do you expect to ever make a lot of money if you don't trade really aggressively with your sizing? Because I'm going to tell you this, you're never going to make substantial amounts of money with very little risk. It doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that you need to risk a lot per trade or every single trade. It just means that there's just simply not enough time in your lifetime to do it. So with that being said, when you get into the markets, don't be so concerned with doing everything right. Make the mistakes, hurt yourself, create that mental baggage, because that's going to teach you, okay, I don't even need to bring this up, right? Like, you ever have a loss so bad you almost don't want to talk about it? You need to get to that point a couple times, I think. I think it builds character. I think it puts some dirt in the wound where you're not worried about it happening again. You say, you know what? I understand that was rough, but what I learned from that is worth the cost of the mistake. I've always looked at stuff that way. I've always said, you know what? This right here is teaching me something that I can learn. As simple as it is. I'm learning from this mistake. And by that fact, I will never regret a decision I make. Because why would I spend my time, my currency, on something that's happened in the past? I don't need that. That's what you consider debt. In an energy perspective, that is debt. I don't carry that forward. I focus all of my energy on, okay, how could I change that? I did not like that. How could I move closer to my goal? So I think my whole point with all of this is when you come into the markets, be willing to take the risk, be willing to make the mistakes, be willing to learn from it. I'm so exhausted sometimes when I hear traders say, oh, it didn't work, right? Like I took a trade and it just stopped me out. And I'm like, that's normal. Like you shouldn't be like, oh no, that's normal. How do you react? That's what you should be studying. Because the moment that I start seeing myself exhibit traits of, oh, I get stopped out in profit, and I'm like, the trade ran without me, I better get away from the charts. I better walk far away, because what is coming after that, my ambition might not meet the market conditions. I might want more, but the market might not be giving more. And that's probably the place that I lose the most money, is when I believe that I'm capable of doing something, but something that I could have filtered out, such as a consolidation on a higher time frame, that's what does me in. So you learn from these mistakes, and you'll learn these lessons as many times as you need to learn them. Because ultimately, sometimes a lesson sticks for a month, maybe it sticks for a week. I know in the beginning, I would make a mistake and it would stick for a day. And then I'd make the same mistake the next day and I go, I didn't even read my journal. I wrote down, hey, don't do this one thing. And then that's what I did as soon as the market opened. It's a process though. The more you make the mistakes, the more it becomes part of your identity. And you say, see, that's why I don't do that type of thing. That's why I don't do that. Or if it works in your favor, that's why I focus on this one area. Everything you do on the charts is a way for you to form that as part of your identity. You shouldn't be concerned with how do I optimize this or how do I optimize that. You should be concerned with how do I become the individual who has those traits innate. That's it. Markets are a reflection of your internal being. If you are a very unorganized person, if you've been neglecting things in your life, your analysis will reflect those same types of viewpoints because your brain has developed a habit of filtering out just information in general. If you drive around in a messy car, I know a lot of you guys do, like you don't see it for that. But if you're in someone else's car and you get in and it's messy, you're like, what is this? How are you picking me up in this car? Your brain does that same thing when you're looking at the charts. You'll filter out the things you don't want to see, such as the reasons your trade might fail, right? And you'll only see potential. You'll only see, oh, this is what I can do. I can make much more money. I could target that range, right? But if you're not doing the basics, if you're not developing the basic habits and the daily routines to develop yourself into a person who's actually able to see these things, then you're going to struggle. You're going to consistently only see what you want. You're never going to be able to actually materialize your full potential because you'll be putting around in the middle too much. So this week, I want you guys to think about one thing. How can I just rip the Band-Aid off, right? Maybe you're in drawdown. How do I stop the slow bleed? What do you do? Are you going to keep putting around and doing the same thing and trying to chip away and do this or that? Are you going to say, you know what? I know what my best setups are. I'm going to focus there. I'm not going to crank my stop super, super tight. I'm going to give it the room to work. Allow yourself to actually have the opportunity to get your feet off the ground. Because if you just keep paper cut, you're just going to be stuck in the middle forever. And that's the worst place to be. I would rather you fail with confidence than consistently just chip away at your confidence as a human. You should go into something, you say, you know what, this is a good trade. You should put some size behind your best trades and then see what happens. If they don't work out, maybe they were not as good as you thought. But the worst thing you could do is actually start winning a bunch and never having any sort of real results to show from it because you just spent so much time trying not to blow an account or bleed out. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose money. Either put your best risk behind a single trade or you're simply just going to paper cut yourself down to the bare minimum drawdown possible. And you're just going to blow the account. You have two options. You can either walk through life with some conviction by following a set of rules on and off the charts, or you could simply stay in the middle and just donate your money back to the market. The choice is yours.